Hey, what is up, YouTube? It's Rich. First things first, cheers. I was gonna do a live stream of this, and I realized I film my YouTube videos right now with my older phone, and my new phone zooms in too much, and it's just like my office isn't set up to really record with it. Which is why I haven't been able to do like work in progress videos. I can archive them on this though. I just can't live stream right now. But anyway, so I had a really good question on the YouTube channel, and this is going to be a really, I think, inspiring video. So grab a pencil or a pen, or get on Photoshop and start coloring a page, and sit back. And I'm going to give you some advice on being an artist. Hold on. I'm going to read the question. He wanted to know some drawing tips. We'll get to that later. But yeah, inevitably what happens is people kind of come across my channel, or they meet me at a con, and they realize, one, I'm maybe able to help them more than other people. I can share a really funny story really fast. So when I was a kid, I was in first grade, and I got to school, and I hadn't done my homework, and there was another kid that I was friends with. We weren't super close friends, and he hadn't done his math homework either, and I sat before class and I helped him do his homework, and I didn't do mine. And I think that that's sort of indicative of my personality in a weird way, is like I'll do more to probably help other people than I will myself. And I remember as a kid kind of, seeing that behavior in myself, and even thinking like, well, that was kind of weird. Like, you just helped some other kid do your homework and you didn't even do it yourself or turn it in. That's the magic of Rich right there in a nutshell. But quick housekeeping. Check out my Patreon. I'm telling you, for $1 a month. No one's going over from YouTube. Like, very few people. And I don't mean the people that did, I appreciate it. But it is amazing. Like, I'll put up a video and it'll get like 1,000 views, and not one single person goes and checks out Patreon. If you love what I do here, it's over there and way more, and really interactive. I'm posting art all the time. We've got draw alongs, so it's really fun, and it helps me. Like I said, you'll hear this from everyone on YouTube. YouTube doesn't pay well unless you've got real serious numbers. So, use it as a tip jar and come over. I'm going to send you 25 unlisted videos, and you're going to see a ton of art. I posted, I think, 3 or 4 times yesterday, and we did a draw along that I suggest every day at 1 p.m. And just over the next 24 hours, if you have time, do some sketches and throw them up. There's a community forum. It's really fun. All right, so the question was, I think, on the Daredevil piece. Let me see really quick. Like I said, I'm not going to answer his question directly, but you'll get the point. So he says, awesome work. Really excited for Blaster Kid. I thought it would be very nice to make a video on how to approach drawing as a beginner. So I'm running with that theory, but he wants to know like how to practice, what to practice, resources, etc. for comic book art, and a detailed video on that would be, I guess, so you know what, I am actually hitting the question more directly. I kind of thought he wanted me to show the basics of drawing, which there's so much of that on YouTube, but I'm not opposed to doing it. I have done some. So look, here's the deal. Being an artist is a really amazing thing to be. I came from music, so, I was a guitar player, I played bass, I was a professional singer for like 6 years. This is all before I got into comics. I mean, I was in a band that was signed to a label. We toured the United States 3 times. Some people know this, like, my band was asked to open for Nirvana. We opened for Stone Temple Pilots. I've played with Tool. It was real cool. But I got into comics when I was 22 or 23 years old. And like a year later, I was working professionally. And I did bands for a little bit longer after that. But I've always been in the arts. There's not a lot of stability in any of them. So that's something to be aware of. But we'll get to that later. That's not really what we're talking about. So look, this is my advice to any beginning artist is, if you're really passionate about art, that passion will never die. You will always want to do this if it's in you. There's no doubt. And there was a guy at Wildstorm who wanted to draw, had a lot of potential, And I told him basically that point blank. I said, look, you want to draw comic books and you actually have some potential to do it quite well. Um, that desire is never going to go away. So you need to do the hard work. You can either do the hard work now, or you can do it 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 30 years from now, or never. But it's never going to go away. So if you've got that fire in you, just pull the trigger and go for it. Whatever amount of time you can draw a day is better than not drawing at all. So if you only have 20 minutes a day, but you sit down and actually try to draw something nice 20 minutes a day, look, you're making progress. Over a period of months, you will get better and better at whatever you're working on. It's some of the advice that I'm going to give is so simple that it's actually really, really complex. What is space? Well, space is like this huge void that goes on and on forever. But does that really sum up what like space is? No. So it's the same with some of these principles of what art is about. So the one thing that was a huge like light turning on moment for me, and you guys will laugh about this, but I'm telling you, I guarantee that there's people out there that gloss over this every time. If you look at almost any single drawing book, those like first 4 or 5 pages where they show you primitive shapes and like how to do a very simple light source, usually like a single light source on them, that is so important that almost everyone misses that. You get it at a surface level of, yeah, I get it. Like a head is like a sphere, or it's like a cylinder, depending on how you sort of like set it up. The torso is this shape. Okay, but every single thing that you draw is basically geometry. And if you can start to move those really simple shapes in your mind, the cats are starting to fight. They're getting, you know what it is I get fired up talking and it fires them up. Do you see there's one right here? This is the nice one. She's the one that gets chased. No fighting, guys. Seriously, you're gonna wreck my flow. That's so funny. All right, so but yeah, so what I found is I started getting better and better with drawing just stuff, superheroes, the stuff. You start going like, okay, wow, like I really kind of need to know this better. And you may not go back to drawing those simple shapes, but just if you're a beginner, realize that that's really important, because a head is just a combination of all these little shapes, shaved off a little bit here, shaved off a little bit there. And when you can light a simple rectangle, or you can light a simple cone, you are going to start having some really, really powerful tools at your disposal that are so obvious that they're not obvious. Okay, so take that stuff seriously. You don't need to sit and draw like cylinders all day, but just be aware that if you can start to understand that geometry and lighting it at a very base level, and Scott Robertson is a really, really good artist to look at for this. He has some videos on primitives and shading primitives and stuff like that, and it gets complicated real fast. He starts juxtaposing a few shapes together and shows you like kind of how cast shadows work and stuff like that. It's very rewarding to do. The stuff looks really cool because it's super 3D. If you draw and your stuff looks kind of flat, it's because you don't understand geometry, and that's the bottom line. I know I'm not giving necessarily artistic advice right now on a career in art, but this will get you going. And really, no matter how far along you are in your career, unless you're like a master artist, you can always kind of go back to this stuff and get better at, like the planes of the face. It's a really, really fun and rewarding process that you can always add to and get a little more nuance or remove a little bit of nuance, but you will have the control over it because you understand what you're drawing. So yeah, and what you'll find if you do check out the Scott Robertson stuff is like I said, it gets complicated real fast. You start connecting a few shapes together, and what you do is you apply those really simple principles to that stuff, and you'll start to see how form is suggested in a drawing, and how you can make something that's two-dimensional, three-dimensional. And when your eye gets keyed in on that, you start to see structural problems with other people's work. There's professional artists that I look at that actually draw really flat, and it's kind of funny when you see their work, because it's like you can kind of tell how they learned, kind of based on how they draw. But it takes many years to really develop that eye. And just because I can spot it in others people's stuff doesn't necessarily mean that I can apply that 100% to my work. So don't think because I'm saying I see that I can do it. There is a difference. I don't think it's exactly like being like a music critic and not being a musician at all. I've been an artist for a long time now, but there's always refinement that you can make on it. But I can definitely tell when I see an artist who really doesn't understand form, but has maybe learned more from copying surface detail, meaning like they've learned, we used to joke at Wildstorm because someone had come down from another studio one day and they were talking about art, and they were talking about how they were going to study Mignola to learn how to spot blacks or something like that. And they were kind of laughing at it, because it's like what they were basically saying is like, I'm going to learn to make a cake by learning how to frost a cake. But they'd never really learned to bake a cake or construct a cake. All they were doing is going like, if I use piping around the edges, it'll look like a cake, but maybe the cake is like, like this or like that. Wildstorm was a very interesting place to learn art. And there were different iterations of the company. So and even within the company, there was sort of groups. And it wasn't like a separation thing, but it just depended on when you came in. So when I came in, you had the established and kind of like super successful young guns, and then you had the image founders. So even though they weren't all there, you had like your Jim Lees, your Mark Silvestris, your Todd McFarlanes. Then the next chain down was J. Scott Campbell's and the Ryan Benjamins and the Brett Booths and the Richard Bennett's and the Aaron Weisenfelds and the Travis Charets, and they were really successful and well on their way. When my group came in, we all kind of there was like a group of, say, 7 of us. And we all kind of worked with each other. And there were a few peripherals that had come in maybe like a year before us that weren't like that window when like J. Scott Campbell and Travis and all those guys blew up was because comics were so huge. I've talked about this before. It's just, it really boils down to numbers. J. Scott Campbell's a great artist, so don't misunderstand this. But what I'm saying is, if you have 1 million eyes on you and 90% of those people leave, you still have 100,000, if I'm doing the math right, you still have 100,000 people checking out your stuff. When I broke in comics, we're selling like 60,000 copies. So when I lose 90%, now I'm down to 6,700 fans left that are aware of my work. So they've always had the numbers in their favor in terms of their reach. But so each group kind of had different parameters that they were able to work under. The original guys, it was really about just getting really, really good at art and kind of deadlines be damned. And that would be a very interesting environment to grow up in as a 19-year-old artist or a 20-year-old artist, where Jim brings you in and you have the opportunity to really kind of do the best that you can do, and you're kind of around artists, and it's like, if a piece takes you 5 days, that's fine. And I'm not saying that that's exactly how it was for them, but that's sort of my fantasy of what I think was kind of going on. And there was, maybe a little bit more hands-on. Like, my group was kind of brought in and we were told like you need to produce, we need to be seeing stuff from you on a regular basis, and you can't really do what the group did before you because sales aren't what they were, and you guys need to have the hustle. And so that decimated a lot of artists of that group. And I've actually, someone commented on something that I had said at Wildstorm to them on Facebook a few months ago, and it was interesting because they were it almost sounded like they were being critical of what I had said to them, but I said, things have changed a lot. So they were like a new artist coming in, and the gist of it is that I had kind of told them that comics was doomed or something like that. And really what it was Wildstorm was hemorrhaging sales. If your company goes from selling 1 to 3 million comics to selling less than 100,000 comics, that's a big shift. And the writing was on the wall that something was going to change at Wildstorm. And within 2 years, they were bought by DC, and the company was dismantled. We used to have the second and third floor at the La Jolla office, and everything moved down to the second floor. So what I said was accurate. They maybe didn't understand it at the time, but I had more insight into what was going on. Yeah, and then there was even a group after us, which was like Carlos Deanda, Liber Mejo, Ollie Garza. There probably was more. And so each group kind of learned in a different way and had different sort of work expectations. Like they did a lot of licensing stuff, and then you went and there was actually groups after that, because then they worked on the big DC MMO. I can't even remember what MMO stands for. Online, like multiplayer something online, like the game. And then some were doing comics at the same time. But so my advice for artists, once you've kind of learned to draw, would be especially now, is be versatile. You know, you don't need to learn versatility in terms of like, don't think because you've been drawing for a year or two that all of a sudden you need to be like a digital colorist and you need to be able to do concept art and you need to know how to do ZBrush or 3D Studio Max. It doesn't hurt to be aware of those. I've worked in all those programs. I love that stuff. You know, and it's my passion kind of covers a lot of ground. I always talk about concept art and that kind of stuff, which I love. You know, it's some of my favorite stuff that I see. Although I really am falling back in love with comic books and storytelling. And like I said, I've been really, really inspired and super kind of positive lately. And it's not always like that. Like it's a long road in doing art, and you're going to kind of have lots of stops and starts, lots of changes, and it's just something to kind of be prepared for. Is inevitably a job in art will end. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that at some point the project that you're working on will come to an end. If it's a video game, you might work on it for 5 years, but at the end of it, Gears of War is done, and you have to kind of go on to the next thing. Sometimes they bring the whole team. Sometimes they bring part of the team. Sometimes the company folds. You know, they go, well, we made our $90 million or $250 million or $4,000, and we're not going to do this again. And so then you have to be ready to kind of go to the next thing. So I'm going to read his question again, just so I don't drift off topic, because there's so many stories and experiences that I could share. Yeah, you know, I don't want to be a shotgun blast on this. I want to try to keep it focused. How to practice. Okay, so how to practice. You know, for me, time management is something that's incredibly important. And one of my favorite compliments that I ever got was from J. Scott Campbell, because he saw how hard I worked when we used to share an office together. And at the time, I would come into Wildstorm around 9 o'clock in the morning. I would work pretty much until 5 o'clock. I would go to band practice around 7 o'clock till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Get home, and then I would study for a few hours, or I would pencil for a few hours. And I did that for years, and he was always really impressed by that I was still playing in a band while I was at Wildstorm. I almost think that it's weird. The timeline is actually hard for me to remember. I almost think that I did one U.S. tour while I was working professionally, or really close to breaking in. Anyway, but yeah, so whatever your schedule is, if you're a high school student, you still have a schedule. There's something that you have to do at a certain time of the day, or if you work a day job, if you have a little bit of time before you go to work or you go to school, that you could, even 30 minutes, wake up 30 minutes early and draw for a half hour. And then if not, you know, maybe from 2 to 5 o'clock, 2 in the afternoon until 5 o'clock, you have a little bit of a window. You get home from school or college, whatever it is, and at 5 you go and do your night thing, whatever it is. You work at a bar. You know, can you draw for an hour or two then? I mean, you need a schedule, and you need to manage that schedule. And I always call it kind of like a baseline. for me right now, because I don't have like specific, like I'm not working on like a monthly book, my schedule's kind of been decimated in a weird way. It's been very, very difficult for me to maximize my time in the day because I'm doing weird stuff like, God damn, it's freaking light. They don't sell these lights anymore. They're actually really difficult to get. You know what? I found some smaller ones, but yeah, these desk lamps are actually very, very hard to find now. But yeah, so because I have to do different stuff during the day, like I'm emailing editors, I'm trying to sell some art, I'm doing commissions and all this stuff. It's kind of thrown me off of my game a little bit. So like yesterday, I didn't really do that much, but I was doing stuff all day. For 3 hours, I was going through art, uploading it to Comic Art Fans, and just kind of like, it's something that I neglect. Like selling art to me is always like a thing that I do on the side. If I'm working, inking a page a day, I don't really have time to sell art. So it's kind of like always on my third tier to-do list. But it's like, if you don't have work, well then, you start to sell art, or you start to take commissions, whatever it is. So having a baseline schedule always gives you something to come back to, the norm of what you should be doing, and that will help you stay on point. So what to practice. So again, the fundamentals are always key. If you don't know anatomy, you definitely have to learn anatomy, but this is what I would say with it, is try to learn one version of it. And what I mean by that is commit to what you want to learn quickly. When you get a muscle that you think looks cool, that's your muscle. It doesn't need to be accurate. If Joe Madureira draws arms the way that you like it, sometimes I look, some of my advice won't always be consistent, but I'm gonna streamline it. It's what you want anyway. It's the reality of it is, look, if you really, really like someone's stuff and you like the way that they draw arms, just learn to draw arms like them. I'm not saying like copy them where your stuff is going to look exactly like them, but look at an anatomy book and see where the muscles sort of like start and stop. And then if a particular artist stylizes it in a way that you like, just learn those muscles and then commit to that. That's going to be the way that you're going to draw it. And what will happen naturally is the longer you draw, it will kind of evolve into your own thing, unless you really, really are in like love with someone's stuff. And that does happen. I mean, there's definitely artists that I could go like da-da-da, draws like da-da-da. But generally speaking, we all kind of move through that phase. And then you're so busy and you're drawing so much, you don't have time to grab out so-and-so's comic and copy it again. So it's like, some people fly really close to the flame, some people have the the special seasonings from a few artists, and it evolves. It's a natural thing. But yeah, commit to one version of male anatomy and one version of female anatomy. Know how to blow it up, where you've got your normal 6 to 7 foot tall superhero, your teen body, and then your brute. That will simplify things for you from the get-go, and then you can always add to that. Like Adam Hughes was always refining his anatomy. When he came to Wildstorm, he had brought 4 or 5 of his sketchbooks, like these kind of sketchbooks. He had, I think, 5 of them, and they were full of drawings of studies. Some were pieces that he did, and Adam's sketchbooks are absolutely incredible. You can actually Google online, and I'm not talking about the sketchbooks that he sells at cons. I'm talking about his real sketchbook pages. He sold quite a few of them, and the pages were actually sometimes sold individually, so you can kind of see the studies. But he'll take like a flying figure and isolate the arm, and he draws the torso. And that's kind of something that if you're passionate about, you can kind of always incorporate that. Wow, it's already 24 minutes. Dude, I could talk about this stuff for hours. I was going to do a live stream, but I knew it wouldn't be like a direct line to it. But don't get caught up in a practice loop. It's a really dangerous thing to do. Don't prepare for some sort of like magical moment where you're going to be great. I've made the mistake of doing that. I think because of my peer group that I came up in. I mean, when you work around Lee Bermejo, Carlos Dianda, Jim Lee, Ollie Garza, Brett Booth, Travis, all these guys, Adam, it sets a very, very high bar for what your standard, like what the gold standard of drawing well is. And I never gave myself the chance to be the 19-year-old version of them and just kind of like where you suck. And especially because you always want to show stuff online, it's like it created kind of a weird thing. But now, and then I'll go right into social media. This is a great way to, one, build your fan base. And it's going to be slow and frustrating, and it's going to go up and it's going to go down, and you'll post something real nice and you're going to lose people and not understand why. But what you'll ultimately find, whether you have 100 people following you or 100,000 people following you, is what they like to see you do. I see it firsthand on my Instagram. It's amazing what gets a reaction and what doesn't. I'm watching the clock. I think my phone cuts out at 28 minutes. But again, this me going through the alphabet thing, 2 of the pieces that got the most likes was my own stuff. Over really big name artists on really big name characters. And you don't want to ignore that. When you see people responding to something, you want to give them more of it. Those are the people that are ultimately going to be there for you for the long game when a job on Gears of War ends. This is wrapping up quite nice. I'm like, whoa, Rich, like you're sliding into the home plate smooth. But yeah, when all the jobs are done, the people that are going to be left are going to be people like you that follow my YouTube channel. It's going to be people that loved the work that you did on Stormwatch 20 years ago, or your Instagram feed that made them happy on a crappy day. And one of the greatest things that I get is when people come up to me and they say, you know, your YouTube channel really helped me get back into drawing, or it really helped me go to the next level, or professionals that I meet that were fans trying to break in, that I gave advice to, you know, 10 years ago that are big name artists. And they said, you know, I met you at Comic-Con and da-da-da, and you gave me the best feedback that I ever got. And that's awesome. So, all right, smash the like. Please share this if you can. And get ready for Blaster Kid. I'm researching Indiegogo. And within the next... It's a little more complicated to like for me to understand exactly what I'm getting into. So I want to do my homework, but within the next week or two, I'm going to put an Indiegogo campaign up for Blaster Kid. I'm going to move forward with this. Check out the Patreon. It's really fun. You'll get more of this. All right. I love you all. Talk to you later, and do what I say. Telling you, I know. All right. Bye. Buckethead. That's the mask. He didn't give it to me. I bought it off eBay.